I wish I had a print, but I'm afraid if I go back there into my shelf, it'll take 10 minutes, half of the time of this interview to find it. And then by that time, people will be gone by then. So,
Oh,
but yeah,
hey, wait a minute. Remember when I told you that this is the part where Colin screws up the opening?
And the audio's not coming through.
My dear wife just came down right as I noticed. My audio was off. One of these days, I'm going to get this right.
Oh, like the other one? Like where the audio is silent?
Oh, no.
Like in the beginning?
This time, actually, everyone had your audio, and I was just a talking, moving, flapping mouth.
Oh, my God. So I'm sitting here talking to myself like, yeah.
You are, but you were doing it wonderfully.
Okay.
Welcome to Amateur Hour on the Videocast, everybody.
Do we want to rehash that? Do we want to rewind? Or
yeah. No, hold on. Let's just start all the way over right now. Ready? Here we go.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so this is the part where everyone's seeing the nice waiting room.
Yeah, and then I can be like, oh, I didn't see you there. Hello.
Yeah, and we're talking under the guitar, right? Blah blah blah. Hey, look, there's Court of Twilight and Paramancers. You did that cover art. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And now, boom! Hey. We're not actually going to start all over.
Colin. Yeah, no, it's all good. I'm just kidding. thanks for assuming me and running with me on that.
Yeah. No. Hey. So hi everybody. I'm Colin. I'm the guy who screws up the start of Conversations on Craft every single time. This is 5 in a row. And with me tonight is Chris Park, illustrator, great dude, artist, man about town, who you can hear.
Hello.
Hi. Okay, cool. So let's talk about, so you are an illustrator and artist. You're not specifically a fantasy artist. Like we had mentioned earlier, and people have heard. I found you because you've done some amazing work for Lightspeed Magazine. But what got you interested in art and illustration in general?
I think I don't know. I feel like most artists, it was this an escapism. Not that the world that I was living in was negative or bad in any sense, but there was just a need to want to go explore different places. And so, like any other kid, I just started drawing. And I joke when other people, tell me, oh, you're so great, I wish I could draw. It's just the difference between artists, I feel like, and other people that say those sorts of things where I can't draw. It's like we all were drawing,
Sure.
It's just the artists were the people that just never stopped.
Right.
Everyone else was like, I'm not interested. I'm going to go do something else. So that was kind of, I feel like it's a boring answer, but it is the truth, is that I was always doing it. And I never stopped. So that's kind of how I got into it. But how I got into illustration specifically was college, and my mother was luckily enough, I had parents that were really supportive about me doing art as a career.
Aren't always, yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I had some buddies in college that parents weren't. They'd go get a real job, whatever. But she found this school, and it was called Ringling School of Art and Design down in Sarasota, Florida. And I was like, at the time, I'm like, oh, whatever. Like, this is the next step.
Is that associated with the circus? It would have to be.
It is. Yeah, it was started by John Ringling. I think back in the 1930s. So very very early. So it's an old school actually,
Sure.
But very small campus and everything. So my mom got me into there, told me about it. And then I went through the process of getting into it. And then once I got there, I realized fully that art isn't just, or illustration isn't just a hobby. It's it's a career, and I picked it because it was the most broad sort of application for art, commercial art. You could draw, you could basically draw dragons and robots and all these cool things and get paid for it. I mean, what's not to love about that?
Well, you can. I cannot.
Yeah, right.
I could draw a dragon or a robot, but nobody would want to pay me for the dragon I would produce.
Yeah. I got to see that, by the way. We got to do an art swap. That'd be fun.
We'll do a thing maybe in a few minutes. I have a pen. I believe that's all you really need, right, to be an artist?
You might need some paper too, unless you want to draw it on you can draw it on your face, on your body. I don't know.
My wife tolerates a lot from me. She is a very, very patient woman, right?
Yeah.
Our oldest, our toddler, is upstairs right now refusing to sleep, and periodically I hear the Jurassic Park Velociraptor dun, 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 going across.
Yeah, nice.
Meanwhile, I get to play on the internet here in the basement. So she's lurking. She's
Yeah,
listening.
she knows that you made her go to bed, so she's like, I'm gonna ruin Dad's podcast. I'm gonna F this thing up.
So, anyways, yeah. So, I want to go back. So, you had said like,
Yes.
hey, I'm an artist because like everyone draws, and I just never stop drawing, right?
Mhm.
Is that? Do you think that's the trick for anyone? Like, anybody has the ability to become an artist, and they just keep going?
I like it's a very like non-romantic sort of non-drama like way of looking at it, but that like the older I get and the more I do this, Colin, I'm just like it's just persistence, like doing it long enough. And I'm sure maybe there's a lot of parallels with writing and music and all these other, and I guess really anything, but like, yeah, there's no gift, there's no talent, there's none of this. Like you just do it enough, you'll get good at it. What's what is the outliers thing, the 10,000 hours or whatever? It's like similar concept to that. It's just putting in the hours and doing it.
Mur Lafferty and Matt Wallace, two authors, they have a podcast called The Ditch Diggers, and they kind of argue against that whole, writing, you need your muse, you need to be in the right emotional state, and the galaxy must send you cosmic writing rays. And they say it's a job like any other. Like, go out, and if a ditch digger doesn't have the muse, it doesn't feel inspired to dig a ditch that day, it doesn't matter. You still got to pick up your shovel, get on your boots, and go dig a damn ditch. Like, that's what you have to do.
Right on. Yeah. Eloquently put. I like that.
Yeah, and you can look at anything that way, right? Like, no matter what your job is, like, there's a part of every job that everyone hates. Doesn't matter. Like, you could be the president of the United States, and clearly there are parts of his job that man does not like, right?
Every part of it. No, I don't know.
Shining the seal is a thing that he seems to enjoy.
Sure.
But you just like you do it. You have to do the stuff that you don't like in order to be able to do the stuff that you do like.
I think that's the hardest, one of the most difficult parts about turning art from a hobby into a career is that. And there are times I joke with my wife, I call it art depression, and it's like I go through it once every month, and some artists probably go through it more, and then some go through it less. But I'm sure every artist can relate to this, where you look at your work sometimes and you compare it to other people's or whatever, and you're just like, I suck. Like I am really not that good, which can be helpful because it motivates you, but then also it can be debilitating.
As long as you don't let it just completely crush you.
Correct. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Publishing is the same way. Like one of my favorite parts of this job is covers, right?
Yeah.
I love like reading a book, and as I'm going through it, just like building that imagery in my head of like what's going to work to help show people this story visually before they get into it, right? Before they get into the text of it. But there are days where I'm like, you know what? I think I got a pretty good concept here, and I feel happy with the art that comes back. And then there's other days where I see stuff that comes out from like Orbit or Tor or any of the other large publishers out there, and it's just like, oh crap! No, never mind. That's what I need to be doing. That's an amazing cover.
Right.
It's tough. Like you've just got to have. You have to have confidence in your choices, but still be open to kind of growth, right?
Yes, absolutely. Always open to growth. But then there's also like on the flip side to that, what you were talking about, where you're like, oh, you look at other people. There are times for me personally, I don't know if this is with everybody, where I'm sitting down and I'm just like, and these are the times, and I make something and I look at it and I step back. I'm like, how the hell did I do that? Like, where did all this come from? And that's, I'm going to contradict myself probably throughout this whole entire podcast, but like that's part of the mystical sort of part of being an artist, of that, like that talent.
I get that sometimes with ad copy, man, and I just look at it and it's like Michelangelo,
right? Yeah,
it's touching out of marble. Yeah,
totally.
that actually does not happen ever.
That's got it. No, that's beautiful.
My life is mainly spreadsheets and waiting.
But you got to feel that muse to get before you got to feel that muse before you get into that spreadsheet.
I need to feel inspired to wait, because it is super duper hard to sit around and wait for other people to deliver things so that you can assemble the train and put the train on the tracks and send it out of the station.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there is like like good and bad, man. It's all balanced. Like that's with art and everything. It's trying to art and life and everything, not to get too heavy handed so early
Sure.
in, but just having that balance, realizing that sometimes there's areas with your work that you need to improve. And then there's others where you're like, dude, I got this.
Yeah.
And like, this is what I know.
And you work for yourself now, right? Like you're freelance.
I do. Yeah.
And that's how you keep a roof over the head and food on the table.
It is. Yeah.
But did you ever have like an agency background? Did you go through the kind of like the corporate illustration lifestyle?
Yeah, man. I went through, like, I started after I graduated, started doing, like gig poster designs for bands and stuff like that. Like around, I grew up in Minneapolis and St. Paul, so Minnesota, and did a bunch of like rock and hip hop posters and stuff like that, which was cool because it got me a chance to check out the local music scene, which was pretty good in Minneapolis and St. Paul, considering. And then I started then I was like, oh, you know what? I'm not doing so good. I need to start doing web design. Got into that, ended up getting a job at a company. They made me a project manager.
Okay.
And so I'm like explaining CMS and like WordPress to companies and stuff. Hated that. And eventually left. I liked the work environment. That was fun. The place was cool to live and work in. And then ended up getting a graphic design job at a book distributing company. Hated that too, because just all these moments in my life where I was trying to convince myself that maybe illustration as a career wasn't going to be work. As a hobby, cool. But as a career, maybe that wasn't going to be it. And then I thought I was going to be an in-house illustrator. And I'm like, no, I'm bouncing back. So I was all over the place.
It's funny because you talk to creatives in any industry, right? Like, and there's this common vein of, either they just knew what they wanted right off the bat and boom, nothing was going to stop them, and that's what they did. Or they were like, hey, this is what I want to do. But that makes no sense because I have to be an adult or whatever. And you go from, it seems like really talented people often have like half a dozen just kind of jobs where it was like, I'm going to try this, I'm going to try that. Project management as an artist, like, I mean, you can do it, but it's not a natural skill set, right?
Absolutely not. But those things, I look back, I remember after I had, and by the way, Colin, while I was doing those things, I was not drawing, I was not creating art. And it was a really sort of debilitating part of my life as an artist, because I was just not honing my craft for about a year and a half, 2 years. But oh gosh, I lost my train of thought.
But you're talking about, so you're going through these endeavors, right? And you're just a little bit too drained, and you can't be going doing the art that you want to do. There's an interesting parallel to that. I spent a lot of time over the years in various role-playing communities, and if you spend time around role players, everybody wants to write a book based upon their world or their character or something. And so often you come across people and they go, well, I'm playing this character for research, right? I need to research and design the character, do all this stuff. And it's like, well, but you're using all your creative energy researching, right? At some point, you've got to stop researching and just start creating.
Make it. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree.
So you jumped out of the suit and tie corporate world, right? Into
cubicle. Yeah, that's
cubicles,
right,
drab gray, everything, into the world of freelance art. What was that? Yeah. What was that switch like? Was it just you woke up one day and you were like, I can't do this shit anymore? Or?
It was a little bit of that. I mean, well, it wasn't just one day. I realized that I needed to get out of it. And then at the same time, then me and my wife were like, listen, we don't got kids. We don't really have anything holding us to Minneapolis too much. Like, let's go live somewhere. Let's go do something different. Let's be somewhere else. And I felt like that was pretty important for me at that time to kind of like reboot a little bit, like my brain, and just go somewhere else. And we just were like, let's go to LA. That's kind of where the art stuff is. And we made a life here. And that's when my art really started revamping up again.
Yeah.
And like, I started creating a bunch. So that was helpful in getting to where I am now. Yeah.
So it's interesting. So I grew up in southeastern Pennsylvania, just outside Philadelphia. Go Eagles, world champions.
Nice, yeah.
Fly Eagles fly. And I went through kind of a similar thing where it was just like jumping through, and project manager was one of those jobs, jumping through a number of jobs, like none of them quite fit right. Someone was like, hey, you could be a PM, because PM is kind of like you're good at a whole bunch of things.
Right.
So you can just do a little bit of everything and kind of cover for everyone.
Spin plates, kind of, right?
Yeah, that you and your wife decided, hey, a change of atmosphere is key, because I ended up moving down to DC. It was just like, hey, I got to change something, right? I got to change something because this isn't working. So it's interesting. It's a neat little parallel.
It is. It's nice when, I know that's moving somewhere to a completely new state might not seem like the easiest thing, but to us, it ended up being a lot easier. And it's nice when you can change your mode of thought like that real quickly by just being in a separate place. It was cool. It was cool. We were lucky.
Cool. And so outside of freelance illustration, right, you are working on a book right now, right?
That's right. Yeah. So doing these covers, then it would come to, and things started to click for me, and I was like, well, I think I need to. I started becoming more interested in the storytelling aspect of art, and I guess you could say I was always interested because that's why I chose illustration. And so I said, well, like it just makes sense to maybe go dip our toe first into the children's book world to see if that's what I want to do. And my wife was interested at the same time. That isn't her day job, but we were like, let's just write something together.
Sure.
Sat down one night on the couch and just came up with some ideas. I think this one was her main idea. And we wrote a story, and then I went to some conference in New York, met the owner of one of the publishers, a small publisher, Sleeping Bear Press. They're based in Michigan. Me and him kind of hit it off, and then he ended up passing the manuscript to the editors, which he said he'd done a lot, and they're always like, we don't like this. Like, this guy's always coming up to us with ideas that are not that great and whatever. And they ended up liking this idea, oddly enough. So it's bizarre, Colin, because I'm sure you know a lot of people, and on your previous podcast talking about it can be really a long, arduous process, or it can just be like, bam, it happens real quick. And luckily for us, It was one of those things where like we wrote one thing and people ended up being interested in it. So
I've told this story a couple of times, and I'll keep it super quick, but our first title was Vic's Vultures by Scott Warren. If you haven't read it yet, people, it's an amazing military science fiction adventure. It combines the heart of Firefly with the action and adventure pacing of Mad Max Fury Road. It's really just a thrilling read.
With an awesome cover.
Thank you so much. Tom Edwards, an artist working out of the UK. The guy is crazy talented, and don't tell him that, though, because he might raise his rates, which would be terrible for us. But give Tom business. He's worth it. Eric, who was the partner that I started Parvis with, it was one of the first books that he read. I had already picked it up like the first or second day I was reading submissions, and I was like, oh, this one looks like it might be good. I'm going to put it aside for when I've got time later. Cool. And then Eric finally picked it up and read it, and then called me, and he's like, this publishing thing is going to be easy, because like the third book that I've read is amazing, and we should do this one. So yeah, I mean, it's so often not easy, but every once in a while it is. Every once in a while it just works. Yeah, it's good too for me at this position in my career, because I've had enough rejection where it just does not faze me. Yeah. I'm just like, whatever. It literally just bounces right off me. Sure. So I'm like, no, I really like that's just the way it goes. So when's the book going to be out?
Persistence. August, 2019. I think early 2019. So. The other interesting thing about it is we already kind of had the story written. I had illustrated the book. This I can grab behind me and show you.
Okay.
This is the dummy, right? But it's a finished book. Yep. It's finished. All the illustrations and text and everything is all laid out in there.
Yeah.
And people say for illustrators, don't do that. You don't need to do a full thing. So I was surprised that they, first of all, picked up because it was so complete.
Sure.
But then now going through it, the changes are extremely minimal. So I think maybe part of the reason why they picked it up is because like, hey, this story is already kind of written, and like, let's just like crank it out. Yeah. So 2019, they said 2020. Late 2020 possibly, and then they came back and said 2019, and I'm like, whoa, that seems kind of quick for publishing. I don't know. I'm still new to this world, but
no, it sounds very much like they just picked it up and they're like, this is going to be really good. We'll get it to the editor. You need 6 months to work through it, and then 6 months to release, and then they got to look. The timelines on this in this business are just insane. When
insanely long, or just like you mean like
so long. It's so long. It's because like a book has to be locked and done no more changes, 6 months before it gets released, because you need time to get it out to reviewers. You got to get time to get out to publications like Library Journal, and I'm not sure who the trade magazine record is for the children's book industry, but like they need time to read it, to look at it, decide if they like it, to write an article about it, and then put it into their pre-press production. So it's just nuts.
Yeah, that's a big challenge for me, because ever since high school, I was never a guy that did well on long-term projects, and I always left it for the last minute, which had made me really good at doing something really fast.
Sure. And
that translated into my artwork.
Yeah.
This will be interesting. This will be an interesting ride for both of us. It's been fun so far. So
let's talk about. I plugged this as saying that we're going to talk about visual storytelling, and I think this is a really good cue to jump into that. Right? Like,
let's do it.
You have now written a children's book, but one of the things that just pulled me into your art to begin with was that in a single image, in a single frame, there's action, there's motion, there's a story, right?
Yeah.
And so I want to talk a little bit towards folks out there that are looking to find an artist, right? People that are doing self-publishing or maybe not in the publishing world, but they're looking for an artist to design a cover or something for their product. There's a lot of bad covers out there. So what is it? What do they need to look for in an artist's portfolio to tell the difference between someone who just slaps some images together and someone who's telling a story?
I mean, I think like a consistency in like the feeling and the tone of the pieces, but also just like the how well they're put together. I don't know. Consistency seems like if I were an editor, or that's what I would look for first and foremost, to be fully honest with you. So as long as the work is consistently good and it has that feel, which is odd for me to say, because I don't know if people ended up looking at my work, it's like across the board, it's all over. There's whimsical stuff, there's dark stuff, there's this and that, but I don't know. I feel like if I had to, make a plea in my defense, I'd say but there is this. Each one kind of gives a feeling, so there is consistency in that.
Well, there is a consistency to your art, and I'm going to take a minute here, and I'm going to pull up your portfolio just because,
sure,
right? But I think consistency is really the key, because for me, when I look to pick up an artist to do some work for us, I'm looking for someone who has a vision, right? And they've got the same way that you want to pick up a book and you want the author's voice on the page and not just dry text. You want to know that the artist is telling you something.
That's right. That's absolutely right.
All right. So let me see here.
But I also wanted to say, and this might be interesting because that's what they taught us in school, and that's what they're saying. Hey, this is what art directors also want to see. They want to see that you can be consistent. But
by the way, hold on. I just want everyone to know we're going blackout real quick, just because I'm pulling up a website. So don't worry about the blackness. It's intentional blackness. Please do not text me. Sorry, go ahead. So when you were in art school, they were telling you that people were looking for.
I want to make sure that the last comment that I said about being consistent doesn't drive any other people that are thinking about being artists or whatever to not have that variation in their work, because maybe it's hindered me from getting specific types of jobs, but it's also, I felt like it was the thing that made me also love about doing illustration, and is being able to be versatile. Jumping into the fantasy world 1 minute and then jumping into children's books and then going to dark stories or graphic novels and comic books and stuff. It's like, me as an artist, I get bored very easily, so I have to be doing a bunch of different things at once. So it's doable, to be a versatile artist. I personally think that it's a strength, and I try and play off of that strength, but I'm sure there's...
And I think you do it very well. Everyone just had to go through a little spasm as I ripped through a couple of things. Whoa! This is the wrong display, everybody. There we go. So you see all the applications I keep open as I'm doing this. So what I've pulled up here, Chris, is your portfolio, and I want to start with
Right
the.
I'm gonna look at it too.
Yeah, the Lightspeed cover.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the stuff that I really like about this artwork, right, is, like I said, there's action and motion and there's a story, right? So you've got everything arcing towards the center. You've got these two figures standing in the foreground, just kind of looking up on everything, and this really cool futuristic city. But what I really liked the most was you did this beautiful color work here.
Yeah,
and
thank you.
It's like. And you combine that with and I don't know the art term for this, but the dot matrix style of like stippling or coloring.
Yeah, like it's halftone, like a halftone comic book, a print magazine.
Yeah. Yep. And that's just it just makes for some beautiful art.
Thank you. Yeah, interestingly, there's always a couple of pieces when over the years and whatever that like just everyone jumps to. I can understand why this image is because it's, there's a lot of colors and there's a lot of interesting goings on. Me personally, why I'm drawn to it is this sense of space, the kind of distortion of the ground as if you're in a camera looking up, you know what I mean? And that's an element of my work that I'm trying to do a little bit more and throw into my work to immerse the viewer in the image. So
I want to jump over to the to talk about consistency, right? To the Court of Twilight cover, where you use that same halftone shading on the skirt of the character in the foreground. You use it on the scarf of the male figure in the stained glass, and some of that same sort of just beautiful color work in the stained glass and in the light cast through it as well.
Yeah, thanks. And also, there's aesthetic things like that, right? That are similar, the vibrancy of the color and the halftone patterns. But every time, Colin, I start to do a thumbnail or start to do a little sketch, it's always a silhouette in front of something grander. You know what I mean? There's always a graphic outline shape in front of a backdrop of craziness. So.
Let me pull up some of your thumbnails too, right? So
yeah.
I've got the thumbnails up for Court of Twilight.
That's right. Yeah.
And this will help us talk a little bit about process. I mean, we're running up on time, and I think we'll just take a couple of extra minutes here, just so people understand what it's like when you hire an artist, right? To do a cover design for you. So what you did was originally you had sent, and I know it was more than just these 8, but you put together these thumbnail sketches just to kind of map out, here are some of the elements that would appear on the cover, right?
That's right, yeah. And it's funny, it's which one I wish that you picked? It's the one of the girl in front of the window surrounded by all the plants. I can't remember the character's name.
Yep, Ivy.
Ivy, that's right. Yeah.
Or is it Demi? Who knows?
Oh, that's right. Yeah. But there's always that interesting waiting period where I'm like, this is the one that I want. But I'm like, obviously you guys are the clients and you know better. So, but oh man,
I'm glad you had a preference.
I always have a preference. Sure. I just never make it known because I don't want to
influence.
Because I know and it's the one. The joke is with illustrators, you do all these thumbnails, and then it's the one that you want that they never pick.
Well, so that's so you go from those thumbnails, right? And then you and I talk and narrow down, hey, okay, I think that this one's the right way to go. With the stained glass, it was very much impressions of things that would be in there. And then, you drilled more to a refined sketch and into the particulars from there.
Yeah, that's right.
So
and the color comps and like you said, narrowing it down so that if any problems arise, basically so that if you want to change something, you can change it at that stage, in the beginning stage, when no final art has been made and it's not a pain in the butt,
And I've got the Parametrics cover up now too. And again, just to talk about consistency, right? Like your use of color, you're not doing photorealistic. Like it's very much inspired by comic books.
Yeah. Oh, that was fun to work on. That one was fun because once you told me that it was drawing on sort of 80s, 90s like cartoons Saturday morning, I was just like, I'm in. Let's do it, man.
It was the inspiration behind this book, which everyone's going to get to see right around the beginning of next year, was role playing games like Japanese RPGs from like the late '80s.
Yeah. Yes.
So and it was inspired of that same period of time, and it really just evoked. Come on, the name Rise of the Paramancers. It just, man, like He-Man Masters of the Universe, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And we've got some sketches here too, where again, just implying the action and the framing of items on the screen or on the cover, and then down into the color comps. So if you're out there and you're thinking of doing some cover work, you're interested in the process, you can head over to lovelycreaturestudio.com and check out the portfolio for the Parvis work. And I appreciate that you've just kind of shared all the stages up there for people to get a look at.
Yeah, I feel like it's helpful for anyone who's not familiar with the process. But I also enjoy the thumbnails. I mean, it's a lot of fun to start working on an image in those beginning stage because anything is possible.
Yeah, and
come up with the weirdest ideas.
If you're out there looking for an artist and you're looking to hire a freelancer and you've never done this before and you're just not sure how to tell if they're kind of for real or not, one of the things I would definitely ask them is just understand their process. Are they giving you thumbnail sketches? Are they doing color comps? Are they showing you the work in phases, or is it just cool? I'll have that color for you in 2 weeks.
Yeah, that communication is key. It sounds like such a cliche, but like I guess with artists, if I were to give advice and stuff, it's like just like over communicate. I don't think anyone has really ever been annoyed with me with talking too much. It's like you're always going to avoid those problems.
The only times that I've ever really felt that I've screwed up when working with an artist is when something kind of bothers me at the beginning and I say, well, I trust the artist and let me get all the way to the end. Because ultimately, if you're commissioning an artist, you're a customer, right?
Yes.
And if it bothers you on day one, it's going to bother you on day 365.
Yeah.
It's always worse to try and make the artist go back and like remove an element that's been in there since the beginning, right?
Like personally, and I don't know if I should say this, but like I'm like, I don't care. That's just part of the job because like people switch their minds. But like, yeah, if it starts to affect the client's like pocket and everything, because I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, sure, I'll just make whatever change you want. It's like, well, I'll make a change, but like,
and that's hit it early when it's in the sketches phase, because then it just you're not have to. It's not going to take hours to change.
That's right. Yeah.
Normally, this part in the program hereabouts is when I'm drinking a can of lovely Perrier, which is green, so it disappears when you see my background. I'm not. Tonight is not sponsored by Guinness.
My goodness.
For strength. It is not sponsored by Guinness.
Nice.
To the good people at the Guinness Brewing Company, I thank you.
Great brewery also. Been there in Dublin. Really cool.
Yeah, the brewery tour is amazing.
Yeah, it's fun.
It's self-guided, so it's like from that perspective, It can be like you've got to be kind of in a mood to read. There's so I live in DC. The Smithsonian museums are right down the road, basically. Like Virginia, the DC suburbs. But a lot of people don't understand the Smithsonian museums are all free. So you just walk on in. It doesn't cost you anything. And it's just like some people are like, well, then why aren't you there all the time? It's like, because how often do I feel like being outside and reading at the same time? If I want to read, I want to be home, right? So
you don't see too many people just sitting on a bench outdoors reading.
No, well, it's sun. It's super bright and it reflects and it hurts your eyes. But did you do the Jameson distillery tour while you were in Dublin?
Did not do that.
That one is a really, really good tour. They've got some talented tour guides there.
The distillery process is cooler. Like when it comes to tours, breweries tours are fun and everything. Yeah, sure. But like,
here's a big tank and there's something happening inside it.
And then grab a beer and whatever. But like the distillery and it's to me it's more interesting than the beer tours. But no, I haven't done that.
Yep.
Maybe if I go back, I'll do it.
All good. So we're running over on time. I could probably talk to you for like 3 hours. So everyone hang out for the next 2.5 hours. Chris and I are going to start talking about tacos.
Let's do it.
You said that we were going to talk about, it wasn't beetles. What was it? Scarabs?
the scarab thing, but that was because of the Paramancers cover.
I
don't know. I was just throwing it out there. That was the one character where I didn't know too much about it.
I've
but
got
I was
your
like,
color comps back up.
Yeah. Because it's supposed to be like a blob sort of like amorphous thing, but it's got these elements of like insect, but also it's like a paramecium essentially.
Well, here's what was in. So for those, I mean, we're not spoiling anything for the book. Let's just talk about this real quick on process. So with this book, and there's an enemy. And it's manifest as basically like a scarab beetle kind of a creature. But there's also kind of a blob, an evil blob sort of monster in here too. Again, go back to like 80s role-playing games, like the slimes and the blobs, right? So, but the direction I gave Chris, like originally, and we're scrolling to this so you can see it if you're on the video here, Chris, you did this really cool illustration of a scarab beetle in the background with like beetle stuff coming up.
Yeah, the mandibles.
Yeah, and I realized that the scarab is the big enemy of the arc of the books, right? So what I wanted to go with was more of a theme where we build to the beetle, that beetle manifest creature being in the final book in the prominent position. So what we ended up going with was more of that blob creature that's here, but you still get some of the mandibles and those things. So it's just, pulling together elements of both.
I like that though. I had a lot of fun and I remember you saying that when we were talking about like it's just a little hint, just a little taste. And so making it subtle was important, but having it, in the background there somewhere.
So that's, cover design, it's not magic, but it is visual storytelling in that you've got to kind of plan out, like, especially in a series, you can't just find a good artist and go make me a cover, because you've got to figure out, is this going to work for the next 3, 4, 5 books?
Yeah. That'll be interesting too with our book that's coming out too, because I think a lot would go with the children's book is to have it become series, and so we'll see if that happens.
It's always to build a brand, man. It's just watch Keeping Up with the Kardashians and use that.
Oh yeah, do I have to?
Yes, because if you want to talk about building a brand, they became famous because they wanted to be.
Right.
So
yeah.
They built a brand out of nothing. Good for them. I mean, not nothing. I mean, they had money and lots of money, and that helps. Do you have lots of money, Chris?
I do not have lots of money, but I'm happy, honestly. And that's the other thing is like, I made the decision to do this, knowing that there wasn't oodles of money involved.
Yeah.
But I don't care, because I'm like, you don't need that. You need only a certain amount of money to be happy. After that, I think they've done tests and stuff on it. Like, no matter how amount of money, it really doesn't increase your happiness.
There is an article floating this week. It used to be $75,000 a year. And
they have an actual number. That's funny.
They've updated the study, and it is now $104,000 a year in U.S. dollars in North America, is the amount of money at which more money stops making you more happy.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't necessarily know that that's entirely true.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, anyways.
Yeah, being satisfied, and then also like I don't got it in LA. I don't have to commute. I don't have to step outside and deal with traffic or anything. But I do. My doctor told me that I do have a vitamin D deficiency in one of the sunniest states in this country, and I don't have enough sun.
You're a bit of an indoor cat, so
I need to get out more.
Yeah. Well, especially, listen, as an artist, you work in, color is finicky. You've got to work in no light conditions most of the time.
In complete darkness,
in the park cave.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's
all right. So listen, we're going to wrap up here. It's been lovely talking to you. Folks, if you need illustration or design for any purpose and you want one of the most talented people around, Christopher Park, lovelycreaturesstudio.com, right?
That's correct. Yep.
He also does not charge what he is worth, but don't tell him, because then he'll charge me more, and I will not be able to afford his beautiful covers.
You already said it, and we can't go back.
And it's on video.
No, I'm just messing with you.
So hey, listen. Thank you so much for joining. We have all right. I can't tell you who my next guest is yet, but I have my next guest lined up. You're gonna love that guy, and join me again in about 2 weeks to see how I screw up the introduction again. I think this is the best screw up by far so far, Chris.
It's like a calling card. I think you should just do it or keep it doing. People respect you for it.
Once I get it down, I'm going to have to fake a messed up intro. Anyways, all right, everyone, thank you so much. I'm Colin Coyle. This has been sponsored by Parvis Press. parvispress.com. Our new book, Flotsam, is debuting on March 27th by the amazingly talented R.J. Theodore. Flotsam is a genre-bending adventure that combines the best elements of space opera and steampunk with a little dash of magic and fantasy. You're going to love it. It's one of the best debut novels that I've ever read. Go pre-order it now, parvispress.com/Flotsam, Flotsam. All right, now we do the thing where the guitar comes on and it says goodbye to everybody.